Welcome to the last podcast of 2024. I don't think we're going to do this again before we break up for our little 2-week holiday. We've got a fair bit of stuff to get through, actually.
There's been a lot of news going on since we've last been talking, isn't there?
So we've picked together what we think are going to be the most interesting subjects for a good chinwag, basically. One is the bikeradar article about 12 ridiculously expensive cycling products. It's a really, really good chat, and I hope that you guys join in with the chat and also talk about it over Christmas and get stuck in the comments. The Colnago launch. Mostly I want to talk about how it was launched. I think that was really interesting about how they did that rather than what we think of the actual bike a bit. Chris Miller hates my bike. he's called my bike a dog. Some of it is completely justified, to be fair, but I want to talk about it anyway. I think that'd be quite good fun. The aero bike versus light bike argument seems to be lighting up at the moment as well. Is the recession over? Are we back into 2-bike territory, or that SKU count reduction? It's all getting a bit nuts. I think that's it, isn't it? And then we'll see where the conversation takes us from there. So this is an article from BikeRadar. We'll put the link down in the description. It just caught our eye, didn't it, really? And we're like, do you know what? Yeah, maybe. So they came up with a whole list of stuff, and we're going to go through them and just add our own thoughts. So the idea of the article was 12 ridiculously expensive cycling products you don't need. Love that. And the very first one, they said, any helmet costing more than 150 quid.
I mean, they kind of do have a point, don't they? Because once you get to the £150 mark, you've got all the safety features you could possibly need, like MIPS or Bontrager Wave Cell or whatever you want in terms of safety. Once you go past that point, it's not getting, for road bike helmets anyway, you're not getting any safer than that. And so any purchase beyond £150 is purely for aesthetics, really.
And on paper, marginal gains on aero.
But you kind of buy it more because it looks cool, not because it's faster. That's why I spend more money on my helmet, because it looks cool.
I mean, I like Smith helmets. I'm a big fan of Smith helmets, as you know, and I like how they look. I like how they sort of fit in my head. I like the fact that your sunglasses all integrate with them and stuff, which, to be fair, quite a lot of other brands do now. And they are about 200 quid, those helmets. I do quite like them. But it doesn't offer me any more protection. I mean, I smashed my helmet quite famously on the channel and talked about it, and everyone told me to go to the doctors, which I did. I don't think it offered me any more protection than any other helmet did. No,
and same for me. I haven't met Trenta, and Pogacar wears it, so it looks good, and that's why I bought it, because it looks nice and it matches my kit. And it's more, I bought the carbon one because it's cool. It offers no additional benefit to the regular one, which is like 50 quid less. But it just looks cool.
So I think it's an element of fashion, isn't there, with some of this, isn't there? With I want it to look good, and sometimes a really nice helmet just makes you feel better. I get that, but 150 quid seems to be the point, and I agree with them, where the point of marginal gains or the no more returns, you'll essentially cross that line. It's a bit like buying a pair of jeans, isn't it? Suddenly they're not making them any more durable or any more comfortable. They're just going to be a brand. So I kind of agree with that one. The next one on their category is expensive shoes. I kind of agree, because you can fall into the trap of buying expensive shoes, and they're not always the best thing for you. I.e., the more expensive they get, the lighter they get, and the stiffer they get, which isn't always what you want.
No,
depending on your foot health. And
I think again, it's much the same as the helmet chat in terms of you could spend any amount of money on a set of shoes now. Like, if you want a set of Nimbles, you can pay 600 quid for a pair of shoes. And is it actually going to be any better than a set of Gyro, or bog standard Shimano S-Fire shoes?
I've heard that you can buy high heels cost more than that.
Probably. Very, very, very probably. I'm not an expert.
Offer no practical use whatsoever.
I'm not an expert in the subject, I have to say. But I do think it's the same as the helmets. It's like you get to a point where if you've got a set of S-Fire, like the 7 Series S-Fires that are 100 and something quid, and they're just good.
I think there's a dangerous trap of thinking that more expensive is better. But generally speaking, that when you buy really expensive shoes, sometimes you've got to have one really good foot health to, and be conditioned to ride it at a really, really stiff sole. Not everyone finds them any better.
I think you're much better off buying a set of shoes that fits you really well and your use case than spending loads of money on technically the best shoe.
And find something that actually fits. Shimano Dura Ace Di2, I was really weird. That was really weird seeing that on that list.
Because, yeah, I think out of all of the top-end group sets, and this is something we're probably going to get into the weeds of a little bit more, I think of all the top-end group sets, Dura Ace is the most reasonably priced one.
Yeah, by about £1,000, if not more.
Yeah,
because
I think you can pick it up at the minute for about 2,200 quid.
Yeah, in theory, it's meant to be about a £3,000 group set, which means that SRAM Red is about 500 quid more. Super Record Wireless S is about 500 quid more. But in practice, it's always on sale about £1,000 off, isn't it?
Yeah.
So it's really weird seeing it on that list because it's a fantastic group set for the £2,000 mark. If it was at £3,000, don't think I think the same about it.
Yeah, because I mean as well they say because I mean a big part of their points here are the weight differential is 411 grams between Ultegra and Dura Ace, and we'll probably see roughly £1,000 price difference at the minute. And actually,
to save 411 grams on your wheels though, you'd have to spend a lot of money.
Exactly. That's the kind of my thoughts behind that is actually for the £1,000 difference that you'd pay for that 411 grams, all right, most of it's in the cassette and stuff like that. But I think that's actually a reasonably cost-effective way of saving that 411 grams now, in terms of, I think, yeah. Or if you still got a set of alloy wheels on your bike and like all that sort of stuff, then yes, you've got more money to save. If you have an Ultegra Di2 group set and a set of aluminium wheels, is kind of the point they're making here, then yes, you'd be better off buying a set of carbon wheels. But that's not usually the case, is it?
No. So I think it's weird seeing this on here because they didn't mention the sale prices. I think if that was still at £3,000 odd pounds, and it should be,
I'd probably agree with them.
I still think that SRAM Red and Campagnolo Super Record Wireless S, I'd be very, very tempted.
Yeah, I think if you were just going straight off of retail prices, I think it's a couple of years older. There's a lot newer stuff that's come out, and I think you could argue that. But for the sort of £1,000 odd pounds cheaper that it is.
And weirdly, we've got these things. Obviously, we've reviewed the SRAM Red, and I'm riding it on my bike at the moment. And we've got the Super Record Wireless S in for test at the moment. And we were like just bantering around in the work.
I think arguing is probably the right word, isn't it?
It was a proper argument, actually, to be fair. The guys in the workshop got really aggressive about this. I have to admit that my eyes have been opened to this. I've been speaking to a few people. I've now had it in my hands and I've been connecting it all up and playing with it. And I'm actually very impressed. I haven't ridden it yet, but my first impressions of this, which is the same as first impressions I got with the SRAM Red before I had a chance to ride it, I think it's beautiful. I think it's really well made.
I don't think you can argue with how nice it looks. I think it is. I think it is a good looking group set, especially the cranks.
And when you get up close to it and you start researching it, more and more the research I've done into it, and more I've learned, like the battery capacity and stuff like that. I've gone, so yeah, I'm looking forward to get this on the bike. But my mind's not closed to this now. I'm very open-minded to it.
Yeah, I think the problem for me is I'm not the customer that this is aimed at. Because for me, I just see that as a total waste of money. I don't understand why you would buy it over Dura Ace, because for me, Dura Ace, I think it's better. I think it looks just as nice, and it's like 1,500 quid cheaper.
Only in sale.
Yeah, but it's always on sale. It's always on sale. RRP is not a consideration because it never is.
Yeah. And I don't know how long it will be before this is on the market, before this comes down to sort of Dura Ace prices. I think because of the way Campagnolo work, it's not really ever spec'd on OEM. It gets a bad rep for being expensive because you never see it on the grey market OEM stuff. It tends to hold its RRP value, where these tend to get boxed out in various bits of packaging and God knows what else, doesn't it? So it is hard to compare like for like because you are generally paying more. But more on that later. But Chris Miller was like, this is our dog of a group set. It's like, it weighs a ton. I don't think he's actually ever seen one, because I think if he had, it definitely doesn't fall into that category. But anyway, we'll cover that in the future. Next up, fancy bottle cages.
I 100% agree. The picture they have on here is the 100 Great British Pound Silka bottle cage. And that is the biggest waste of money I've ever heard.
Yeah.
It's just stupid.
The only time we've ever sold those Silka bottle cages was because they did a titanium version, and they'd anodized a set that perfectly matched the logo of the Amber Time.
Yeah.
Bike, do you remember? That's the only time I ever remember selling a set of those.
Yeah, but I just don't get it. It's just stupid.
I think it's definitely the least effective way to save some grams off your bike.
But that titanium bottle cage isn't going to be any lighter than an Elite bottle cage, is it?
I can't see how it is, no.
And I don't even think they look good.
The lightweight carbon ones, we're talking tens of grams as opposed to hundreds of grams on a group set, etc. So, I'm totally down with that. Bottle cages have definitely got out of control. Carbon wheels costing much over £1,000. I think they've got that price point wrong.
Yeah, well, I think it's interesting as to what you value in a set of wheels, because I think if it's just like performance in terms of speed and weight, I think you can argue that £1,000 price tag is correct, because you can buy a set of the Hunt in that most recent Cycling News wheel aero test. The Hunt Aerodynamic 50 wheels tested very, very well, and they're pretty cheap. And out of the box, they are kind of just fine.
Yep. My argument to that would be for another 400 to 500 quid, I think you can invest in something that will make that £1,000 investment last a whole lot longer, be a lot more reliable.
And I do agree with that, and that's where you see the difference, I think, between that sort of 1,000 to sort of 1,500 quid mark, like you were saying. There's a bit of a jump in price, and you don't necessarily see any performance coming back from that. In terms of the weight will be about the same, if anything, a little bit heavier because of the more durable components. But the weight will be about the same, the aero will be about the same. But it's that sort of it's the investment you make comes back to you over time, when you don't have to mess around because your spoke nipples have corroded, or you can't get free hub, or your axles disintegrates, or whatever it might be with these slightly cheaper wheels. If you have that slightly more expensive set, then you can come back to your warranty, easy to deal with and stuff like that. But you were saying there was 3 wheel brands over that price that you would buy.
Yeah, it got me thinking that, okay, if I was to move that price point up to 1,500 quid, and I think at 1,500 quid, you could get yourself something high performance and highly durable. But spending over that, is there anything that I would really lust after over that? And I think there's 3 wheels that I came down to. One was the scope wheels, undeniably beautiful. I cannot wait to test them. I'm really blown away by their technology in that, and the weight savings. But they're £3,500.
Yeah. So compared to they do test the best, don't they? They test the best in terms of speed.
They're crazy light.
Yeah.
And they look
awesome.
They look awesome and everything else. So I'm very open-minded to that. That's a lot of money more. The other one, controversially, Princeton's.
Yeah.
Because I have ridden them now, and they are very confidence-inspiring wheel. Whether they are aerodynamic and everything else, I don't know. But they're very confidence-inspiring. And I like the fact you can build them onto hubs. So if there's another set of wheels out there that would tempt me, it would probably be a set of Princeton's built onto matte black Chris King hubs. And if I could, I'd ask them if they'd paint it in the Mondrian colours to match my blade.
But that isn't going to be any faster than a set of 1,200 quid Hunt Aerodynamics, is it?
No.
It's not, and that's just, and I think that's the point they're trying to make here. That's purely a tart purchase, isn't it?
Oh yeah,
just because it looks sick, and it's really cool. And I think there is somewhat of an argument to be made for if you have infinite budget and you say, right, I want the absolute best, then yes, those scope wheels are going to be better. But for the regular person, if you buy a set of, let's say, either Hunt Aerodynamics or a set of Fast Forward Riot 55s or something like that, that additional £2,000 to £2,500 that you save in between those wheels could be spent on so much more. Yeah. Like you could have 3 holidays out of that.
Yeah, the other set of wheels are the Bora WTOs.
Yeah, but they're just kind of cool, aren't they?
Yeah. There's carbon hubs, stuff like that. They do look amazing.
Yeah.
And they ride beautifully as well. There's something about the noise that the Campagnolo Boras make.
It's the sort of space. It's the old school spaceship noise, isn't it?
Yeah.
But I do.
It's like you ride in the future.
Yeah, I do think they have a. I do think they have a point in terms of just pure, quote unquote, out of the box performance. But I think that sort of ceiling or floor, as it should be slightly higher for that sort of durability and stuff you get from a little bit more of expensive wheels. Yeah,
I think so. If another 400 to 500 quid, I'd say you could probably get something you are really confident in. You know, not just in terms of riding, but in terms of like your money has been invested in something that can be, last you a long time.
Yeah.
Top end bike computers coming on the back of the Wahoo launch video that we did as well. I thought this was fairly interesting. The 550 quid Wahoo, the 650 quid Garmin. definitely has got a bit of like, really?
I am 100% in agreement with this. I have an Edge 530 and it cost me, I think, 150 quid, and it's just fine. Like there's nothing more. I don't ride with it and think, oh, I wish I had this or I wish it did that. It just does everything I need. It reads power, it has maps, I can navigate off it. It does everything I need it to, and it's just fine.
Yeah, I somewhat agree. Because what is it, the 840 now, isn't it? I think.
Yes.
Yeah, is a fantastic little unit. It does way more, probably more than it should do for its size, because it gets a bit clunky and stuff. But yeah, I think that's probably the top end of where you'd ever really need to be. Simon was involved in this conversation, and we were joking. Well, you're only saying that because you're young and you've got young eyes. Yeah. Imagine when you're our age and you can't see the little numbers so easily.
Well, you can get like a 1040, which is probably I think 400 quid at the minute.
Yeah.
But my big gripe with these is I hate touchscreens on a cycling computer. I think it's stupid.
Touchscreens are definitely unusable when you're actually outside, but the one argument I've got against this is if you're doing a lot of route following. So if you're planning, navigating routes, you do the sort of rides that when like Sally and I do, those big endurance rides, and we need to cut a ride short or navigate to somewhere, shortcut something, or change our route on the fly.
Yeah.
The touchscreens are really good for that. And also having the bigger screen so you can zoom out on the map a little bit and adjust your route. So there is a use case for a bigger screen and the touchscreen, but it's quite niche.
Yeah, I think it's difficult to justify because there's just I think personally my 530 does everything that you need that you would also get from a £650 1050. I don't think it does anything better.
No, it'll still follow a route. It's just I think the only difference is when you want to adapt and change your route as you go. It's almost impossible to do it.
Yeah, that is true.
Yeah. 3D printed saddles. I think I'm the only one that's ridden one, actually.
Yeah, I've never had one. I kind of just get on with every saddle, so I've never been too picky.
I'm the same. I am not a picky saddle. Picky saddle? What's the right word I'm trying to look? I can pretty much ride anything. Yeah. Apart from really shaped things. I like my saddles to be generally flat and stuff. I had the opportunity of riding one, and my first impressions of it was I hate it. And now I've had it for longer, I quite like it. When I first got it, I kept getting my shorts caught.
They're quite grippy, aren't they?
Yeah.
That's what I noticed when working on bikes with them, is that they're very grippy.
And I would like get out of the saddle and then sort of coming back into the saddle, I'd have to sort of like do a little shuffle. I don't do that anymore. I caught myself out on it the other day and I was thinking, actually, I don't even notice myself doing that. But when I first got it, I was like, oh, this is annoying. I won't have this on the bike for much longer. I don't tend to do that anymore. I don't know what I've done differently, whether I've adapted how I sit down or it's just become grippier.
So for 99% of people, you don't need one.
No.
And the returns you get from, I mean, they're what, 400 quid?
That is the problem. I think if they were like for like prices, I think there's a use case for them.
But they're at least 150 quid more than a conventional saddle with carbon rails.
Yeah, I think endurance riding, I think there's a place for them. I think for more energetic, lively, in and out of the saddle, moving around, I don't think there's a great place for them, to be honest. Not in their current form anyway. The technology at the moment is moving so damn fast, God knows where that will be soon.
Yeah.
Then they have top-end smart trainers.
Yeah.
Now, we're a bit of a geek when it comes to this. We've had Tacx Neos since Tacx Neo version 1. In fact, we were people that first got delivered the serial numbers on my Tacx Neos were like 400 and something. So
not 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5.
Yeah, so we were pretty early to the smart trainer, and we've kept with all the Tacx Neos, and recently got into the Wahoo stuff as well. I think depends how important indoor training is to you.
I would tend to agree. For someone like me, does it once a week in the winter when the weather's bad and I can't go outside. I don't need anything more than like 500 quid bottom of the barrel that records my power. That's about it. Fine.
They make the case in here about being, accurate to 1% and sprints of 2,500 watts. I think they're kind of missing the point. I think what you get with something like the Tacx Neo is I like them because they're quiet. Like we had a room of 12 of them downstairs and I could still talk without the need for a microphone over the top of all of them.
Yeah.
And that was incredible. I couldn't ever do that with the Wahoos because the noise that the Wahoos used to make. So in that way, that's why we invested in the Tacx Neos. Then with the Wahoos are definitely more comfortable to ride on. You're going back to Phil Burt's chat. The Move, etc. I think is probably the best way of introducing some movement. And the roller one, God, that's changed our life, hasn't it? Since we've had that in it, we've used it a lot.
It's cool. It's cool.
Yeah. So I do think it.
I think if you were to spend all winter on one, let's say because of your job and your hours you work, or for whatever reason, maybe you live somewhere like top end of Norway and you can't go outside, whatever. If you have to ride all winter on a smart trainer, I would probably spend a bit more money on one.
Yeah, and you think about what a Tacx Neo now sells around £700 to £800, doesn't it? And what you could do for that. There are some better things you could invest your time in. One, a gym membership. Get out and see people and learn something from a coach. You know, especially if you live in our local area, you've got the benefit of a gym like ours where you actually get coaches and other people around to motivate you and help you out and stuff. That's a big thing. If you don't have that, even spending that money on a coach and some warm kit to get outside and do some zone 2 training and some strength training and stuff. So it's not all the be all and end all for fitness, but I think how you approach smart trainers very much depends on your individual situation.
Yeah.
Okay, nutrition.
Yeah. I've got a bit of a gripe to pick with this one because
Go on.
I think they do kind of have a point in terms of if you're just enjoying riding your bike and you want to go on a 4-hour ride, you don't need to slam a load of gels and fill your bottles up with beta fuel. You can just eat flapjacks and as long as you eat enough, it's fine. But for a lot of people who take it, say, more seriously, or you race or something like that, if you're 3 hours deep into a road race or whatever, you're not picking Haribos out your pocket, are you? It's just
you're
ineffective.
Probably not even going to mess around with a rice cake either.
No.
Because you need your hands on the handlebars, avoiding all the paraphernalia that's going on in the race.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's, and the same with like cross-country mountain bike racing. You know, there's so much going on. You need calories inside your mouth as quickly as you possibly can.
Yeah.
And for that, you cannot beat the humble gel.
Yeah. I think they do have a bit of a point in terms of it is really expensive, and we found that here, didn't we? Selling stuff.
Yeah. To be honest, we stopped selling sports nutrition. Like a cycling shop that doesn't sell any sports nutrition. We had a whole thing downstairs. You might have seen it in the videos of the feed zone, we used to call it. And we used to run it on an honesty system where we sort of generally had things at like £1, £1.50, £2, £3, and you just sort of honesty systemed it away. Worked quite well, but we stopped selling them. The prices went up after COVID, and it's just so expensive.
Then no one would buy it, and then we just eat it.
We started going out of date, and then I got fat. So that's pretty much how that worked. The protein bars have got way too much sugar in them. So yeah, I started making rice cakes and stuff like that.
I make my own beta fuel.
Sort of sugary water with muscovado sugar and lemon juice, that sort of thing. I do every now and then pick up a gel if I know that I'm going out for something a bit more intensive, but I can't remember the last time I really brought a gel. Really.
Yeah, I don't train on gels, but I do appreciate the convenience of pre-packaged bars, especially in winter, because when you've got cold and wet hands and cold and wet pockets, especially if you're trying to fish around for a loose flapjack in there.
Oh, I need to introduce you to the world of tonics, because it's the best thing for winter. Promise you. Because normally you wouldn't ride them in summer. Honestly, we need to talk about tonics, because in summer you wouldn't use them because they'd melt.
Yes.
But in winter they're brilliant.
How many grams of carbohydrates are in one tonic bar?
Off the top of my head.
About 4, maybe?
They're
made out of cardboard.
No, they're good. I promise you. I used to use them all the time in adventure racing for that exact reason.
You used to eat cheese, Paul.
I know, baby bills. But you can undo them with cold hands and gloved hands, because they come in decent wrapping that you can just get into easily. Awesome for winter climbing as well, because like you don't have to worry about taking off your massive gloves.
Yeah.
Anyway, we digress slightly.
Yeah, I do think they kind of have a point, but at the same time, I do think you can't avoid it if you want convenience and performance. I don't think you can avoid it.
No, the market has got bonkers, and some of it is crazy overpriced, like with promises that they definitely can't deliver.
Yeah.
It's not. Spats overshoes, weird seeing that on the list, to be honest. Spats overshoes.
I 100% disagree. I really like Spats overshoes. I just think they're really good. They keep your feet warm, they keep your legs dry.
Yeah.
I think they're worth the price.
I I like them. I've got a set, they're ripped here, and I've kind of tried to glue them together and stuff like that. And I don't tend to use them unless I know that I'm going out in the rain, which I don't tend to do that much, to be fair. And if I do, I've got a big cupboard full of waterproof socks, and I like my knee-length waterproof socks. And sod my shoes, they're going to be dirty anyway. So weird that they're on there actually, because a normal set of overshoes is about 60 something quid,
which is not a massive price jump
to like full knee height ones.
Yeah, because I think you have to say that the big full length spats are the best at keeping you dry and warm.
Yeah.
So I think it's not a massive price jump. I like spats.
Weird seeing that. Top end clothing was the last on the list, I think, wasn't it? And not quite. Premium or top end clothing. There's definitely, cycling's got very fashionable.
Oh yeah. Well, we've just seen actually today that MAP, who I would say is probably the biggest offender of being fashionable in the current day, they have just sponsored Bike Exchange, or whatever the current name is anyway.
Yeah.
So they're coming into World Tour as well. But I think it's kind of not wrong in terms of at a certain point you just start paying for fashion in terms of it looks nice, but it's not going to do anything better than as they've got a few examples in here in terms of Callus, Van Rysel, Endura and Sportful. They kind of do have a point.
It's really weird because I think when I really first started paying attention to road riding, roadies were always famous for wearing team kit. In fact, the whole pro bike kit, which used to be in town actually, now sold off to the Huck Group and God knows what else. They were famous for just selling the entire range of all the team kit, and team kit used to be the thing, not necessarily of your local cycling club, but of like the team that you followed. I've got Cannondale Seiko jerseys, and I've got loads of mates with the US Postal Service jerseys and all sorts. That was the thing.
Yeah.
And now it's definitely got into these like earthy colours with like a random stripe on the sleeve or a pink bit here. It's definitely become fashionable, and I don't. And it's sort of split between very sophisticated, almost like wearing a suit version of a cycling jersey, to Fresh Prince of Bel-Air madness, neon, and stuff. So,
but I do also think there is definitely a market in investing in your kit, because if you have, especially shorts, and if you ride in winter, good waterproof stuff, I would still call that top end kit, top end clothing. But I think it's worth the investment.
I'm struggling to know where to draw the line on like a cycling jersey. Because the team kit that we've got downstairs now from LA, I think they're about 90 quid, which still seems quite expensive for a cycling jersey, considering it's like just a piece of, you don't look at it, 90 quid, you don't get a lot for your money. But then when you go down a tier, you suddenly notice the big difference, just lots of seams, and you go up from there, I don't notice.
I think the problem is that we're all spoiled, and we're all used to wearing nice stuff. And if you have once ever worn a nice jersey or a nice pair of shorts, as soon as you go back to the previous thing, it just feels awful. And if you never went to the step above, you would never be that bothered. But as soon as you try on one nice jersey or one nice set of shorts, or you wear a set of spats once,
never ever buy ASOS shorts,
because then you never go back.
Because you can't go back.
Yeah,
that's it. You're destined to spend £200 on shorts for the rest of your life.
Yeah. And so I do think, whilst yes, you do often end up paying for fashion, I think it is worth investing in your kit.
Yeah.
Because if you're comfortable on the bike, you're going to ride more, you're going to enjoy it more, and for the sake of probably 100 quid between a couple of pairs of shorts, it's not a massive price to pay.
Yeah, interesting one. Okay, last on their list was premium bike pedals, and they're putting like Dura-Ace, the Time, what they're called there, the 12s, aren't they? The Look, Keo Ceramics, the Speed Play, anything that's sort of getting up towards the sort of the 300 quid mark for a set of pedals. I'm a little bit torn on this, to be fair, because in terms of, I guess it depends on where you're upgrading from, but in terms of saving some weight off your overall system, it's a very easy and relatively cheap way of saving some grams.
Yeah.
A lot more effective than some bottle cages is anyway.
Yeah.
At the same time, the more premium pedals famously used to be the ones that were more serviceable as well. You used to be able to change bearings, etc. They were made, like the XTR pedals, for instance, are very serviceable, and they're always made to be taken apart and serviced, and you could change out bits of the top plates and all sorts. Now they're all these sort of plastic, carbon composite
Mold,
type thing. That tends to wear out quicker than the bearings do.
Yeah.
So I'm a bit torn. I don't know. They're not the investment that they used to be, because you're wearing down parts that you can't replace anyway. Same with power meter pedals, actually. You tend to wear down the bits of the plastic, as opposed to. But
I think what I would say about premium bike pedals, I definitely agree with, is I think speed plates are a waste of money, because everyone puts them on their bike and they go, wow, it's so light.
So light and small.
It is so light and small, but the problem is that all the weight is transferred into the cleat, so the system weight is the same.
Yeah.
And you can get into such a rabbit hole of trying to set up speed plate pedals that I don't think they're worth it. I would say speed plate pedals I'm not a big fan of.
They tend to the sort of pedal mechanism as well, or the cleat mechanism, I should say, it always gets fouled up with loads of mud and grit, and then it kind of gets manipulated as you tread on it and stuff, and then they sort of come into us, and like all the screw heads are completely gnarled up and like, great. Anyway, we've got a video coming up about pedals, not about speed plates. I didn't include speed pedals in it, but I did talk a lot about time and look, not in terms of the stuff, but in terms of the cleat shape and what advantages. So look out for that. We'll release that over Christmas sometime, I think. Right, that's it. Nice one, Bike Radar. Generally speaking, quite enjoyed the article. Thanks very much.
We are definitely nitpicking, to be fair. I think they've done a pretty good job.
It was thought provoking, which is exactly the point of media, I suppose, to make people talk and discuss things. It definitely got us talking. What else got us talking, and the rest of the world, it seems, is the new Colnago Y1. Help me out here.
Y1 RS.
Thank you.
The aero bike.
If you haven't seen it. It was so we're not going to talk about the bike per se, because I think the bike itself has been talked to death. Maybe we might touch on a few little bits and pieces. What I found really interesting was the media coverage. Like Colnago, Italian brand, quite heritage driven, quite traditional.
I mean, we did see a couple of weeks ago they just launched a £6,000 rim brake frame, didn't they?
Yeah, okay, that's yeah. But I think they are really embracing modern media. We saw Alex from Peak Talk be invited to the launch.
Yep.
That's amazing. That was very brave and progressive of those engineers.
Yeah. And actually even had the engineers there to answer questions. I thought that was pretty cool.
It was, and I actually think that Alex, well done. I sent him a little message and say well done, because I really enjoyed his review, because I think he did exactly the right thing of being respectful to the invitation, that he had got the opportunity to go and speak to them, and also respectful to his audience, that he was going to offer a really honest opinion. It's a really fine line to balance. I think he did really well, so well done, Alex. What was interesting, Hambini got sent the white paper. He wasn't invited, but he got sent the white paper.
Yeah.
And what was interesting is that Hambini actually made a video that was really useful. It's old school Hambini. I really enjoyed that video.
Yep.
It wasn't, some of his recent videos I've been a bit weird about, but that video I found it really interesting, and he'd really put some effort into that. So that was cool.
Yeah. And your best mate, David Arthur, was there?
My best mate, David Arthur, did a commentary. He read through the press release.
Yeah, but that's what he does, isn't it? That's what he's good at. That is his niche.
Yeah. I always think David Arthur videos, you could basically just look. You can watch them without the sound on.
Yeah, but that's his voice, isn't it? That's what makes it David.
There's not as much of that. I just think he just says what he sees, as opposed to But the other interesting one was actually GC Performance. I know he didn't get to see the launch, but how he covered it was from, oh my God, this is expensive. You're going to have to put down pre-orders. You're going to have to wait. The lead time is this on it. He came on the back of the Scott Addict launch that we talked about as well. Like crazy expensive bikes, lots of media hype. But then if you actually want to buy one, you have to go into a shop, pretty much pay in full, wait and wait and wait.
Well, I mean, as soon as you go onto the website, it says Y1 RS from £11,199, and the first button that comes up is join the waiting list. It's not even buy, it's just join the waiting list. But I think it's a really interesting conversation to have about, the Colnago specifically, because as I'm sure a lot of the viewers will know, Colnago is now owned by the UAE. It's a lot of the brands are taking on, like the Pisse kit and stuff like that, is now owned by the country basically. And so I think it's really, really interesting with how they're going along with the performance bikes, because effectively their main goal for this is for it to be as fast as possible. They want Pogacar to ride this to win everything.
Yeah, they want that on the podium, full stop. They're not talking about volume sales like Specialized SL8, etc. They want that on the podium.
Yeah, because to them, it actually really doesn't matter if they don't sell a single one. Like, yes, it technically has to be on sale for the UCI rules, but I don't think they care at all.
This bike is appealing to people to invest in and visit UAE, Emirates Airlines, looking for high net worth individuals, and that's their bigger goal.
Yeah.
The bigger goal isn't selling a Specialized Tarmac SL8 to your local club racer.
Yeah, because almost every other brand exclusively, like for example, like we saw with Trek going down to the one Madone frame, is that they need to make money. Whereas I think this is just purely a performance machine, which I think is really, really interesting to see where they're going to go in the coming years with the stuff that they're providing for the race teams. I think we've already seen that their TT setup is by far and away the best.
It reminds me a little bit about the golden age of rally, when you ideally had to make a rally car that was available to purchase for the public. The reality was those rally cars were so massively overpriced that it only existed in principle, etc. It does smell a little bit of that to me, which is fine. I love the fact that pro cycling is getting that sort of attention.
Yeah.
It's a shame that the thing that is grabbing the headlines at the moment is the eye-watering prices, because I think that is being counterproductive to people joining the sport. Because all of a sudden cycling gets a reputation for being very expensive.
But I mean, that's also kind of not wrong, is it?
It's not wrong, but there are cheaper options. There are ways to enter the sport.
Yes.
There's a bit like you don't have to have a £10,000 bike to be competitive. You can quite happily get a giant TCR still at £2,500. And
you can have a lot of fun.
Competitive at club level, absolutely, and have a lot of fun. Yeah. So I don't like the fact that the general message going out there at the moment is superbike, hyperbike, 10,000, 20,000. That's uncomfortable to me at the moment. And I don't know how to change that narrative, and we are a little bit guilty of it as well, given this airtime. But
maybe people should start releasing cheaper bikes, and then we can got something to talk about.
Well, yeah, maybe a headline needs to be Van Rysel obviously sort of tried, but if you looked at the Van Rysel websites now, they are pretty much like for like the same as Trek Madone's.
That's pretty crazy.
Which is pretty crazy. Which one are you going to choose then?
Yeah, you'd easily pick the Trek.
Yeah. The Trek and the Specialized aren't far off it either. So,
although their frames have now gone up from £4,500 to £5,000. When I was doing my weekly browse of the website, as you do, they have increased again, which is it's just crazy.
Talking about ridiculous money for bikes and old people that can't ride them. It's like hands up. Chris Miller and the Nero Show just called my bike a dog.
I thought it was quite funny.
I kind of did too.
Go on, tell me. But you came over and you were very upset because Chris had insulted your bike, and as we know, he wasn't. But you told me what he said, and I actually didn't. I didn't think he was wrong in anything that he actually said about it.
He wasn't wrong, but he wasn't 100% right either. I thought it was quite funny, to be fair. I obviously like Look. Not necessarily because they're the fastest thing in the peloton, etc. But I love their engineering and the sort of quirkiness about them. I love their build quality.
And I don't think anyone can deny that new white one with the Campag group set on, that looks awesome.
Yeah. But definitely Look made some absolute bonkers mistakes this year, which just ruined the reputation of that bike. The first one was obviously releasing the white colour as a special edition, but the amount of paint they put on it put the weight up, so much so that it was meant to be a special edition for the tour riders to ride, and it was so heavy they went back to the black ones.
Yeah.
So but once we got Guillaume Martin to actually weigh his bike, the black one that he actually rode the tour on, it was about the same weight as everybody else's. It was like 7.1 or 7.2 or something. So but he came out famously on the media saying that my bike's a kilo heavier than everybody else's.
I think in the stock, but again, in the stock configuration, he is not wrong. Compared to for example, an SL8, in the stock configuration that you get off the shelf, it is a kilo heavier.
Yeah, I think Look going to the Karima wheels on that verbatim was a bit of a mistake because the Careemers aren't really ready for that. They make some really beautiful stuff, but the Careemers aren't world class race worthy wheels. They're very much high quality cafe rider wheels. And the other thing, the mistake they made was when they sent it off to the aero test, and there's someone that will look who must be kicking themselves because they didn't realise they were sending a bike to an aero test. They sent one with 42 centimetre wide handlebars, where everything else on test had like
38.
Yeah, and they sent them obviously with the unaerodynamic Careemers.
I do still think even if you put 38 centimetre handlebars, it's not testing that well.
I don't think it'll test anywhere near as bad, but we don't know because you can't see aero.
No, you can't.
There's nothing different on the blade compared to an SL8 that would make me feel like it's anything significantly different.
Except for the wheels.
Except for the wheels and the handlebar width.
Yeah.
So anyway, that was all quite funny. But it did make me think though, if there was anything in the pro peloton that would catch my eye, that if it wasn't a look, and I went to, the only thing I could think of was the Scott foil.
Yeah.
I do quite like.
Yeah.
And then the only other thing, I mean, the factors, definitely not. Couldn't get my head around almost anything else in the pro peloton really, even though it might be faster, I don't care.
Yeah.
And then the only thought I might do instead was a Peter Sagan edition Venge. They should bring that back.
They should. I've meant it. The Venge is still my favourite bike, and they haven't released one for 5 years. It's just it's just the best.
So if this aero versus lightweight thing is continue, and we had the Trek and Specialized famously, they had to try and reduce their SKU count, and trying to make one bike that would do it all, and now it looks like we are slowly getting back to lightweight and aero bikes.
Well, yeah, I think everyone kind of knew that it was a commercial decision, really, because if you look at the Trek, like obviously Trek they've been in big trouble. We talked about it on the podcast before, and they had to reduce their SKU counts by 40%, and all the marketing they brought out about it was that the aero testing was at 200 watts because that's what the average rider rides at, which is perfectly true. That is a good speed for an average rider, but for an out-and-out performance bike, you can't deny that Madone is going to be faster, the old one. And so I think a lot of that stuff is commercial choice, and whether we're seeing a resurgence, as you say, in the industry, or is it just that people need something to differentiate themselves again? Because, as you say, in the peloton, a lot of the bikes do look the same in terms of between really, if you line them all up against each other, you couldn't tell the difference between a V4 RS and an S-Works.
No, it's probably only the Bianchi that looked remotely different, wasn't it?
Bianchi and an S5 are probably the only bikes that look massively different, and obviously this new Colnago as well. But it is kind of much of a muchness between them all. They all do kind of look the same, and yes, there is little margins of performance and little margins of price here and there, but they kind of all are the same. So I do wonder whether it's another differentiator that they want out of it in terms of offering something different to the competition.
Yeah. Just quickly on this Colnago, as from a mechanics perspective, I quite like it. It ticks a lot of boxes for me. Headset means that the cables aren't routed through the bearings.
Yeah.
We've worked on bikes like that before. I can't remember the time trial bike that has it. I want to say Quintana Roo, but I might be wrong on that. But generally speaking, relatively easy to work on.
Yeah.
I can't see it's lighter than anything else because it's normally a big steel pin that goes through the whole thing.
Yeah.
They
said it was 300 grams heavier than the V4 RS.
Yeah.
So,
I'd imagine that most of that is all that mechanism there to make that strong enough. Another thing is, it's gone back to a BSA bottom bracket.
Yeah, I think
that's really weird.
It's just a bizarre choice. I mean, like BSA is like fine, but it doesn't make sense as to why they would go back to that to me. Well, I think the main thing is because it's obviously designed around Shimano group set, because that's who their group set provider is.
BB86 is a Shimano standard.
Exactly, and that's the thing that Pete Torp brought up in his video, isn't it? That it would make a lot more sense for them to have 86mm wide shell that goes directly into the cranks for additional stiffness.
Yeah.
And presumably also aero, that you can mold the airflow around with that with a wider shell.
I'd love to know what the design decision was. That one, that's like, was it engineering? Find that hard to believe it's an engineering decision. Two, was it a consumer led thing? Like, we're seeing an awful lot of kickback from the days of when really badly made press fit and people asking for BSA. Or was it a sponsor thing? Because they're sponsored by Biconi, and that's how you pronounce it, by the way.
Is it?
So, yeah, but not Bic One, it's Biconi. And they like their big anodized, glossy things. Could be one of those three.
It could be.
Or a combination. Okay, so yeah, that was...
I do have one gripe to pick actually with these. This is not really specific to the Colnago, but I just hate when they release pictures of bikes, how they crop out the valves in every picture. I just think it's unfair.
I've never noticed.
They do. Go and look at any website where they're selling bikes. They always crop out the valves on the wheels, and I just don't understand why.
Interesting. The attention to detail is amazing. So, yeah, do we think, to end this podcast, is the fact that we're coming back to crazy priced aero bike and lightweight bikes, is that the cycling recession might be over?
Well, do you know what I'm interested to know? Is that so this is approximately 300 grams heavier than the V4 RS, is if you were to put, because we saw last year, or this year I should say, Pogacar riding 60mm wheels everywhere. And so if you were to have 60mm wheels on the V4 RS, if you were to then make the Y1 RS equivalent weight, let's say with a set of 30mm wheels, I don't know what would be faster. Because we see Vingegaard ride the S5 a lot with shallow wheels. And so I would be intrigued to see actually what they are when you get drilled down into this performance, because as you say, lightweight has kind of come back into the conversation a little bit, what the deciding factor is going to be for these guys as to whether they're going to be riding this with shallow wheels on climbing stages.
Oh, I see what you're asking. You're asking whether an aero bike with shallow wheels, to get the weight the same, would be faster than a lightweight bike with deep wheels.
Exactly.
And you'd result in the end.
So
the resulting weight would be the same.
Yes, but you have your aerodynamics achieved in two different ways.
I think that would depend on the wind conditions of the day.
Yeah, probably.
And on that bombshell, I think we've talked enough about this. We're going to release this just before Christmas. A couple of bits of videos coming out along the way. If you haven't checked out our video about Bridgedale socks and how to keep warm, please go check that out. I'll put the links down below. It was one of our first sponsored videos, but we tried to do it in a way where we tried to give out as much information as possible to still make it educational. So I'd really love your feedback on how that went. Other than that, have a great Christmas, everybody. Take it easy and we'll see you in the new year.